Krishna. I'd like to welcome everyone to our regular Sunday Krishna book reading to Srila Prabhupada. And as we always do, let us offer respectful obeisances to Prabhupada and to each other. Nama Om Vishnumadaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pacharane Nirvisesha Sunyavadi Paskachade Shatarane, and to each other. Vanchakalpadrubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Bhyevacha Patita Nam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. So for all of you online, you can turn to chapter 49. You can also note the subtitles, which will help you to follow along in English. Ill-motivated Dhritarashtra. Thus, ordered by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, a Krura, visited Hastinapur, said to be the site of what is now New Delhi. The part of New Delhi still known as Indraprastha is accepted by people in general as the old capital of the Pandavas. The very name Hastinapur suggests that there were many hastis, or elephants, because the Pandavas kept many elephants in the capital. It was called Hastinapura. Keeping elephants is very expensive. To keep many elephants, therefore, the kingdom must be very rich. And Hastinapura, as Akrura saw when he reached it, was full of elephants, horses, chariots, and other opulences. The kings of Hastinapura were taken to be the ruling kings of the whole world. Their fame was widely spread throughout the entire kingdom, and their administration was conducted under the good counsel of learned brahmanas.
After seeing the very opulent capital city, Akrura met King Dhritarashtra. He also saw grandfather Bhishma sitting with him. After meeting them, he went to see Vidura and then Kunti, Akrura's cousin. One after another, he saw King Bahilika and his son Somadatta, Dronacharya, Kripacharya, Karna, and Suyodhana. Suyodhana is another name of Duryodhana. Then he saw the son of Dronacharya, Ashwatthama, as well as the 5 Pandava brothers and other friends and relatives living in the city. All those who met Akrura, known also as the son of Gandhini, were very much pleased to receive him and inquire about the welfare of their respective relatives. He was offered a good seat at his receptions, and he in turn inquired all about the welfare and activities of his relatives. Since he was deputed by Lord Krishna to visit Hastinapur, it is understood that he was very intelligent in studying a diplomatic situation. Dhritarashtra was unlawfully occupying the throne after the death of King Pandu. Despite the presence of Pandu's sons, Akrura could understand very well that ill-motivated Dhritarashtra was much inclined in favor of his own sons. In fact, Dhritarashtra had already usurped the kingdom and was now intriguing the dispose of the 5 Pandav brothers. Akrura knew that all the sons of Dhritarashtra, headed by Duryodhana, were very crooked politicians. Dhritarashtra did not act in accordance with the good instructions given by Bhishma and Vidura. Instead, he was being conducted by the ill instructions of such persons as Karna and Shakuni. Akrura decided to stay in Hastinapur for a few months to study the whole political situation.
Gradually, Akrura learned from Kunti and Vidura that the sons of Dhritarashtra were intolerant and envious of the 5 Pandava brothers because of their extraordinary learning in military science and their greatly developed bodily strength. The Pandavas acted as truly chivalrous heroes exhibited all the good qualities of Kshatriyas, and were very responsible princes, always thinking of the welfare of the citizens. Akrura also learned that the envious sons of Dhritarashtra had tried to kill the Pandavas by poisoning them.
Akrura happened to be one of the cousins of Kunti. Therefore, after meeting him, she began to inquire about her paternal relatives. Thinking of her birthplace and beginning to cry, she asked Akrura whether her father, mother, brothers, sisters, and other friends at home still remembered her. She especially inquired about Krishna and Balaram, her glorious nephews. She asked, "Does Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is very affectionate to his devotees, remember my sons? Does Balaram remember us?" Inside herself, Kunti felt like a she-deer in the midst of tigers, and actually her position was like that. After the death of her husband, King Pandu, she was supposed to take care of the 5 Pandava children, but the sons of Dhritarashtra were always planning to kill them.
She was certainly living like a poor innocent animal in the midst of several tigers. Being a devotee of Lord Krishna, she always thought of him and expected that one day Krishna would come and save them from their dangerous position. She inquired from Akrura whether Krishna proposed to come to advise the fatherless Pandavas how to get free of the intrigues of Dhritarashtra and his sons. Talking with Akrura about all these affairs, she felt herself helpless and exclaimed, "My dear Krishna, you are the supreme mystic, the super soul of the universe. You are the real well-wisher of the whole universe. My dear Govinda, at this time you are far away from me, yet I pray to surrender unto your lotus feet. I am now grief-stricken with my 5 fatherless sons. I can fully understand Sorry, Prabhupada. I can fully understand that, but for your lotus feet there is no shelter or protection. Your lotus feet can deliver all aggrieved souls because you are the Supreme Personality of Godhead. One can be safe from the clutches of repeated birth and death by your mercy only. My dear Krishna, you are the Supreme Pure One, the Super Soul and the Master of all yogis. What can I say? I can simply offer my respectful obeisances unto you. Please accept me as your fully surrendered devotee."
Although Krishna was not present before her, Kunti offered her prayer to him, as if she were in his presence face to face. This is possible for anyone following in the footsteps of Kunti. Krishna does not have to be physically present everywhere. He is actually present everywhere by spiritual potency, and one simply has to surrender unto him sincerely.
Keep going.
When Kunti was offering her prayers, very feeling to Krishna, she could not check herself and began to cry loudly before Akrura. Vidura was also present, and both Akrura and Vidura became very sympathetic to the mother of the Pandavas and began to solace her by glorifying her 5 sons, namely Yudhishthira, Arjuna, Bhima, Nakula, and Sahadev. They pacified her, saying that her sons were extraordinarily powerful. She could not be perturbed about them, since they were born of great demigods like Yamaraj, Indra, and Vayu.
Akrura decided to return home and report on the strange circumstances in which he found Kunti and her 5 sons. He first wanted to give good advice to Dhritarashtra, who was so favorably inclined toward his own sons, and unfavorably inclined toward the Pandavas. When King Dhritarashtra was sitting among friends and relatives, Akrura began to address him, calling him Vaichitravirya. Vaichitravirya means the son of Vaichitravirya. Vaichitravirya was the name of Dhritarashtra's father, but Dhritarashtra was actually the begotten son not of Vaichitravirya but of Vyasadeva. Formerly, it was the system that if a man was unable to beget a child, his brother could beget a child in the womb of his wife. Devarena Sutotpati. That system is now forbidden in this age of Kali. Akrura could call Dhritarashtra by Chitravirya sarcastically because he was not actually begotten by his father. He was the son of Vyasadeva. When a child was begotten in the wife by the husband's brother, the child was claimed by the husband. But of course, the child was not begotten by the husband. This sarcastic remark pointed out that Dhritarashtra was falsely claiming the throne of hereditary grounds. Actually, Pandu had been the rightful king, and in the presence of Pandu's sons, the Pandavas, Dhritarashtra should not have occupied the throne.
Akrura said, "My dear son of Vichitravirya, you have unlawfully usurped the throne of the Pandavas. Anyway, somehow or another, you are now on the throne. Therefore, I beg to advise you to please rule the kingdom on moral and ethical principles. If you do so and try to please your subjects in that way, your name and fame will be perpetual." Akrura hinted that although Dhritarashtra was ill-treating his nephews, the Pandavas, they happened to be his subjects. If you treat them not as the owners of the throne but as your subjects, you should impartially think of their welfare as though they were your own sons. But if you do not follow this principle and act in such the opposite way, you will be unpopular among your subjects, and in the next life you will have to live in a hellish condition. I therefore hope you will treat your sons and the sons of Pandu equally. Akrura hinted that if Dhritarashtra did not treat the Pandavas and his sons as equals, surely there would be a fight between the two camps of cousins. Since the Pandavas' cause was just, they would come out victorious, and the sons of Dhritarashtra would be killed. This was a prophecy told by Akrura to Dhritarashtra.
Akrura further advised Dhritarashtra, "In this material world, no one can remain an eternal companion to another. Only by chance do we assemble together in a family, society, community, or nation. But at the end, because every one of us has to give up this body, we must be separated. No one should not therefore be unnecessarily affectionate towards family members." Dhritarashtra's affection was also unlawful and did not show much intelligence. In plain words, Akrura hinted to Dhritarashtra that this staunch family affection was due to his gross ignorance of fact or his blindness to moral principles. Although we appear combined together in a family, society, or nation, each of us has an individual destiny. Everyone takes birth according to individual past work. Therefore, everyone must individually enjoy or suffer the result of his own karma. There is no possibility of improving one's destiny by corporate living. Sometimes it happens that one's father accumulates wealth by illegal ways and the son takes away the money, although it was earned with great difficulty by the father. Just as a small fish in the ocean eats the material body of of a large old fish, one ultimately cannot accumulate wealth illegally for the gratification of his family, society, community, or nation. An illustration of this principle is that many great empires which developed in the past are no longer existing because their wealth was squandered away by the later descendants. One who does not know this subtle law of fruitive activities and thus who gives up the moral and ethical principles carries with him only the relation of his sinful activities. Reactions of his sinful activities. His ill-gotten wealth and possessions are taken by someone else, and he goes to the darkest region of hellish life. One should not, therefore, accumulate more wealth than allotted to him by destiny. Otherwise, he will be factually blind to his own interest. Instead of fulfilling his self-interest, he will act in just the opposite way for his own downfall.
Akrura continued, My dear Dhritarashtra, I beg to advise you not to be blind to the facts of material existence. Material, conditioned life, either in distress or in happiness, is to be accepted as a dream. One should try to bring his mind and senses under control and live peacefully for spiritual advancement in Krishna consciousness. In the Chaitanya Charitamrita, it is said that except for persons in Krishna consciousness, everyone is always disturbed in mind and full of anxiety. Even those trying for liberation or merging into the Brahman effulgence and the yogis who try to achieve perfection in mystic power cannot have peace of mind. Pure devotees of Krishna have no demands to make of Krishna. They are simply satisfied with service to him. Actual peace and mental tranquility can be attained only in perfect Krishna consciousness.
After hearing these moral instructions from Akrura, Dhritarashtra replied, My dear Akrura, you are very charitable in giving me good instructions, but unfortunately I cannot accept them. A person destined to die does not utilize the effects of nectar, although it may be administered to him. I can understand that your instructions are valuable. Unfortunately, they do not stay in my flickering mind, just as the glittering lightning in the sky does not stay fixed in a cloud. I can understand only that no one can stop the onward progress of the Supreme Will. I understand that the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, has appeared in the family of the Yadus to decrease the burdensome load on this earth.
Dhritarashtra hinted to Akrura that he had complete faith in Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. At the same time, he was very partial to his family members. In the very near future, Krishna would vanquish all the members of his family, and in a helpless condition, Dhritarashtra would take shelter of Krishna's lotus feet. To show his special favor to a devotee, Krishna usually takes away all the objects of his material affection, thus forcing the devotee to be materially helpless with no alternative but to accept the lotus feet of Krishna. This actually happened to Dhritarashtra after the end of the battle of Kurukshetra.
Dhritarashtra could realize two opposing factors acting before him. He could understand that Krishna was there to remove all the unnecessary burdens of the world. His sons were an unnecessary burden, and so he expected that they would be killed. At the same time, he could not rid himself of his unlawful affection for his sons. Understanding these two contradictory factors, he offered his respectful obeisances to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The contradictory ways of material existence are very difficult to understand. They can be taken only as the inconceivable execution of the plan of the Supreme, who, by his inconceivable energy, creates this material world and enters into it and sets into motion the three modes of nature. When everything is created, he enters into each and every living entity and into the smallest atom. No one can understand the incalculable plans of the Supreme Lord.
After hearing this statement, Akrura could clearly understand that Dhritarashtra was not going to change his policy of discriminating against the Pandavas in favor of his sons. He at once took leave of his friends in Hastinapur and returned to his home in the kingdom of the Yadus. After returning home, he vividly informed Lord Krishna and Balaram of the actual situation in Hastinapur and the intentions of Dhritarashtra. Akrura was sent to Hastinapur by Krishna to study these, and by the grace of the Lord, he was successful. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purport of the 49th chapter of Krishna, Ill-Motivated Dhritarashtra. Haribo.
Chapter 50. Krishna erect the Dwarka fort. Upon Kamsa's death, his two wives became widows. According to Vedic civilization, a woman is never independent. She has 3 stages of life. In childhood, a woman should live under the protection of her father. A youthful woman should live under the protection of her young husband. And in the event of the death of her husband, she should live under the protection of her grown-up sons. Or if she has no grown-up sons, she must go back to her father and live as a widow under his protection. It appears that Kamsa had no grown-up sons. Therefore, after his wives became widows, they returned to the shelter of their father. Kamsa had 2 queens, Asti and Prapti, and both happened to be the daughters of King Jarasandha, the lord of the Bihar province, known in those days as Magadha. After reaching home, the 2 queens explained their awkward positions following Kamsa's death. The king of Magadha, Jarasandha, was mortified on hearing of the pitiable condition of his daughters. When informed of the death of Kamsa, Jarasandha decided on the spot that he would rid the world of all the members of the Yadu dynasty. He decided that since Krishna had killed Kamsa, the whole dynasty of the Yadus should be killed.
He began to make extensive arrangements to attack the kingdom of Mathura with his innumerable military phalanx, consisting of many thousands of chariots, horses, elephants, and infantry soldiers. Jarasandha prepared 13 such military phalanx to retaliate the death of Kamsa. Taking with him all his military strength, he attacked the capital of the Yadu kings, Mathura, surrounding it from all directions. Sri Krishna, who appeared like an ordinary human being, saw the immense strength of Jarasandha, which appeared like an ocean about to cover a beach at any moment. He also perceived that the inhabitants of Mathura were overwhelmed with fear. He began to think within himself about his mission as an incarnation and how to tackle the present situation before him. He thought that since he was not going to conquer the kingdom of Magad, to kill the king of Magad, namely Jarasandha, was useless. His mission was to diminish the overburdening population of the whole world. Therefore, he took the opportunity to face so many men, chariots, elephants, and horses. The military strength of Jarasandha had appeared before him, and he decided to kill the entire force of Jarasandha so that he would go back and reorganize his military strength.
While Lord Krishna was thinking in that way, two beautiful chariots, fully equipped with drivers, weapons, flags, and other paraphernalia, arrived for him from outer space. Krishna saw the two chariots present before him and immediately addressed his elder brother Balaram, who is also known as Sankarshan. My dear elder brother, best among the Aryans, you are the Lord of the universe, and specifically you are the protector of the Yadu dynasty. The members of the Yadu dynasty sense great danger before the soldiers of Jarasandha, and they are very much aggrieved. Just to give them protection, your chariot is also here, filled with weapons. I request you to sit on your chariot and kill all these soldiers, the entire military strength of the enemy. The two of us have descended to this earth just to annihilate such unnecessary bellicose forces and give protection to the pious devotees. So we have the opportunity to fulfill our mission. Please let us execute it. Thus, Krishna and Balaram, the descendants of Dashara, decided to annihilate the 13 military companies of Jarasandha.
After equipping themselves with military dress, Krishna and Balaram mounted their chariots. Krishna rode the chariot, of which Daruka was the driver. With a small army, they came out of the city of Mathura, blowing their respective conch shells. Curiously enough, although the other party was equipped with greater military strength, when they heard the vibration of Krishna's conch shells, their hearts were shaken. When Jarasandha saw Balaram and Krishna, he was a little bit compassionate because they happened to be related to him as grandsons. He specifically addressed Krishna as Purushadhama, meaning the lowest among men. Actually, Krishna is known in all Vedic scriptures as Purushottama, the highest among men. Jarasandha had no intention of addressing Krishna as Purushottama, but great scholars have determined the true meaning of the word Purushadhama to be one who makes all other personalities go downwards. Actually, no one can be equal to or greater than the Supreme Personality of Godhead.
Jarasandha said, "It will be a great dishonor for me to fight with boys like Krishna and Balaram." Because Krishna had killed Kamsa, Jarasandha specifically addressed him as the killer of his own relatives. Kamsa had killed many of his own nephews, yet Jarasandha did not take notice. But because Krishna had killed his maternal uncle Kamsa, Jarasandha tried to criticize him. That is the way of demoniac dealings. Demons do not try to find their own faults or those of their friends, but try to find the faults of their enemies. Jarasandha also criticized Krishna for not even being a Kshatriya because he was raised by Maharaj Nanda. Krishna was not a Kshatriya but a Vaishya. Vaishyas are generally called Guptas, and the word Gupta can also be used to mean hidden. So Krishna was both hidden and raised by Nanda Maharaj. Jarasandha accused Krishna of 3 faults: that he killed his own maternal uncle, that he was not even a Kshatriya, and that he was hidden in his childhood, and therefore Jarasandha felt ashamed to fight with him.
Next, he turned toward Balaram and addressed him. You, Balaram, if you like, you can fight along with him, and if you have patience, then you can wait to be killed by my arrows. Thus, you can be promoted to heaven. It is stated in the Bhagavad-Gita that a Kshatriya can benefit in either of two ways while fighting. If a Kshatriya gains victory in the fight, he enjoys the results of victory. But even if killed, he is promoted to the heavenly kingdom.
After hearing Jarasandha speak in that way, Krishna answered, My dear King Jarasandha, heroes do not talk much, rather, they show their powers. Because you are talking a great deal, it appears that you are assured of your death in this battle. We do not care to hear you any longer, for it is useless to hear these words of a person who is going to die or of one who is very distressed. To fight with Krishna, Jarasandha surrounded him from all sides with great military strength, as the sun appears covered by cloudy air and dust. Krishna, the Supreme Sun, was covered by the military strength of Jarasandha. Krishna and Balaram's chariots were marked with pictures of Garuda and palm trees, respectively. The women of Mathura all stood on the top of their houses, palaces, and gates to see the wonderful fight. But when Krishna's chariot was surrounded by Jarasandha's military forces and was no longer visible to them, they were so frightened that some of them fainted. Krishna saw himself overwhelmed by the military strength of Jarasandha. His small army of soldiers was being harassed. So he immediately took up his bow, named Sarang.
He took his arrows from their quiver, and one after another he set them on the bowstring and shot them toward the enemy. They were so accurate that the elephants, horses, and infantry soldiers of Jarasandha were quickly killed. The incessant arrows shot by Krishna appeared like a whirlwind of blazing fire, killing all the military strength of Jarasandha. As Krishna released his arrows, all the elephants gradually began to fall, their heads severed by the arrows. Similarly, all the horses fell, their necks severed, and the chariots fell also, along with their flags and the fighters and drivers on the chariots. Almost all the infantry soldiers fell on the field of battle, their heads, hands, and legs cut off. In this way, many thousands of elephants, horses, and men were killed, and their blood flowed just like the waves of a river. In that river, the severed arms of men appeared like snakes and their heads like tortoises. The dead bodies of the elephants appeared like small islands, and the dead horses appeared like sharks. By the arrangement of the supreme will, there was a great river of blood filled with paraphernalia. The hands and legs of the infantry soldiers floated just like different kinds of fish. The hair of the soldiers floated like seaweed and moss, and the floating bows of the soldiers resembled waves of the river. And all the jewelry from the bodies of the soldiers and commanders seemed like many pebbles flowing down the river of blood.
Lord Balaram, who is also known as Sankarshan, began to fight with his club in such a heroic way that the river of blood created by Krishna overflooded. Cowherds Cowards became very much afraid upon seeing the ghastly and horrible scene, and heroes began to talk delightedly among themselves about the heroism of the two brothers. Although Jarasandha was equipped with a vast ocean of military strength, the fighting of Lord Krishna and Balaram converted the whole situation into a ghastly scene far beyond ordinary fighting. Persons of ordinary merit cannot estimate how it could be possible, but when such activities are accepted as pastimes of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, under whose will everything is possible, then this can be understood. The Supreme Personality of Godhead creates, maintains, and dissolves the cosmic manifestation merely by His will. For Him to create such a vast scene of devastation while fighting with an enemy is not so wonderful. And yet, because Krishna and Balaram were fighting with Jarasandha, just like ordinary human beings, the affair appeared wonderful.
When all the soldiers of Jarasandha had been killed and he was the only one left alive, certainly he was very much depressed. Sri Balaram immediately arrested him with great strength, just as one lion captured another. But while Lord Balaram was binding Jarasandha with a rope of Varuna and ordinary ropes also, Lord Krishna, with a greater plan in mind for the future, asked Lord Balaram not to arrest him. Krishna then released Jarasandha. As a great fighting hero, Jarasandha was ashamed, and he decided that he would no longer live as a king, but would resign from his position in the royal order and go to the forest to practice meditation under severe austerities and penances.
As he was returning home with his royal friends, however, they advised him not to retire but to regain strength to fight again with Krishna in the near future. The princely friends of Jarasandha instructed him that ordinarily it would not have been possible for him to be defeated by the strength of the Yadu kings. The defeat he had experienced was simply due to his ill luck. The princely order encouraged King Jarasandha. His fighting, they said, was certainly heroic. Therefore, he should not take his defeat very seriously, since it was due only to his past misdeeds. After all, there was no fault in his fighting.
In this way, Jarasandha, the king of Magadha province, having lost all his strength and having been insulted by his arrest and subsequent release, could do nothing but return to his kingdom. Thus, Lord Krishna conquered the soldiers of Jarasandha. Although Krishna's army was tiny in comparison to Jarasandha's, not a pinch of his strength was lost, whereas all of Jarasandha's men were killed.
The denizens of heaven were very much pleased, and they offered their respects by chanting in glorification of the Lord and showering him with flowers. Accepting the victory with great appreciation, Jarasandha returned to his kingdom, and Mathura city was saved from the danger of imminent attack. The citizens of Mathura organized the combined service of professional singers like Sutas and Magadhas, along with poets who could compose nice songs and they began to chant the victory glorification of the Lord Krishna. When Lord Krishna entered the city after the victory, many bugles, conch, many bugles, many bugles, conch, and kettle drums sounded, and the vibration of various musical instruments like bharis, turyas, veenas, flutes, and mridangas all joined together to make a beautiful reception. While Krishna was entering, the whole city was cleansed. All different streets and roads were sprinkled with water, and the inhabitants, being joyous, decorated the respective houses and shops with flags and festoons. The Brahmanas chanted Vedic mantras at numerous places. The people constructed roads, crossing, and gates at the entrance to the lanes and streets. When Lord Krishna was entering the nicely decorated city of Mathura in a festive attitude, the ladies and girls of Mathura prepared different kinds of flower garlands to make the ceremony most auspicious. In accordance with the Vedic custom, they took yogurt mixed with fresh green grass and stewed it here and there to make the victory jubilation even more auspicious. As Krishna passed through the street, all the ladies and women regarded him with eyes bright with great affection. Krishna and Balaram carried various kinds of ornaments, jewels, and other booty carefully collected from the battlefield, which presented it all to King Ugrasen. Krishna thus offered his respect to his grandfather because Ugrasen was at the time because Ugrasen was at that time the crowned king of the Yadu dynasty.
Jarasandha, the king of Magadha, besieged the city of Mathura not only once, but 17 times in the same way, equipped with the same number of military phalanxes. Each and every time he was defeated, and all his soldiers were killed by Krishna, and each time he had to return home disappointed. Each time the princely order of the Yadu dynasty arrested Jarasandha in the same way and again released him in an insulting manner. And each time Jarasandha shamelessly returned home. Oh, what happened? Oh, okay. All right.
While Jarasandha was attempting his 18th attack, a Yavana king somewhere to the south of Mathura became attracted by the opulence of the Yadu dynasty and also attacked the city. It is said that the king of the Yavanas, known as Kalayavana, was induced to attack by Narada. This story is narrated in the Vishnu Purana. Once, Garga Muni, the priest of the Yadu dynasty, was taunted by his brother-in-law. When the kings of the Yadu dynasty heard the taunt, they laughed at him, and Garga Muni became angry at the Yadu kings. He decided that he would produce someone who would be very fearful to the Yadu dynasty. So he pleased Lord Shiva and received from him the benediction of a son. He begot this son, Kalyavana, in the wife of a Yavana king. This Kalyavana inquired from Narada, "Who are the most powerful kings in the world?" Narada informed him that the Yadus were the most powerful. Thus informed, Kalyavana attacked the city of Mathura at the same time that Jarasandha tried to attack it for the 18th time. Kalyavana was very eager to declare war on a king of the world who would be a suitable combatant for him, but he had not found any. However, being informed about Mathura by Narada, he thought it wise to attack this city with 30 million Yavana soldiers.
When Mathura was thus besieged, Lord Krishna began to consider, in consultation with Baladev, how much the Yadu dynasty was in distress, being threatened by the attacks of two formidable enemies, Jarasandha and Kalevan. Time was growing short. Kalevan was already besieging Mathura from all sides, and it was expected that the day after next, Jarasandha would also come, equipped with the same number of divisions of soldiers as in his previous 17 attempts. Krishna was certainly that Jarasandha would take advantage of the opportunity to capture Mathura when it was also being besieged by Kalevan. He therefore thought it wise to take precautionary measures for defending against an attack upon Mathura from two strategic points. If both Krishna and Balaram were engaged in fighting with Kalevan at one place, Jarasandha might come at another to attack the whole Yadu family and take his revenge. Jarasandha was very powerful, and he having been defeated 17 times, he might vengefully kill the members of the Yadu family or arrest them and take them to his kingdom. Krishna therefore decided to construct a formidable fort where no two-legged animal, either man or demon, could enter. He decided to keep his relatives there so that he would then be free to fight the enemies. It appeared that formerly Dwarka was also part of the kingdom of Mathura. In Srimad Bhagavatam, it is stated that Krishna constructed the fort in the midst of the sea. Remnants of the fort Krishna constructed still exist in the bay of Dwarka.
Krishna, first of all, constructed a very strong wall covering 96 square miles, and the wall itself was within the sea. It was certainly wonderful and was planned and constructed by Vishvakarma. No ordinary architect could construct such a fort within the sea, but an architect like Vishvakarma, who is considered to be the engineer among the demigods, can execute such wonderful craftsmanship anywhere in the universe. If huge planets can float in weightlessness in outer space by the arrangement of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, surely the architectural construction of a fort covering 96 square miles within the sea was not very wonderful.
It is stated in Srimad Bhagavatam that this new, well-constructed city, developed within the sea, had regular planned roads, streets, and lanes. There were also well-planned parks and gardens filled with plants known as Kalpavriksha or desire trees. These desire trees are not like the ordinary trees of the material world. The desire trees are found in the spiritual world. By Krishna's supreme will, everything is possible. So such desire trees were planted in Dwarka, the city constructed by Krishna. The city was also filled with many palaces and gopuras or big gates. These gopuras are still found in some of the larger temples. They are very high and constructed with fine artistic skill. Such palaces and gates held golden water pots, kalashas. These water pots on the gates or on the palaces are considered auspicious signs.
Almost all the palaces were skyscrapers, In each and every house, there were underground rooms containing big golden and silver pots for stocking grains, and there were many golden water pots within the rooms. The bedrooms were all bedecked with jewels, and the floors were mosaic pavements of Makarakrita jewels. The Vishnu deity, worshipped by the descendants of Yadu, was installed in each house in the city. The residential quarters were so arranged that the different castes, Brahmanas, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, and Shudras, had their respective quarters. It appears from this that the caste system mentioned in the Bhagavad-Gita existed even at that time. In the center of the city was a residence made specifically for King Ugrasen. This was the most dazzling of all the houses.
When the demigod Indra saw that Krishna was constructing a particular city of his own choice, he sent the celebrated Parijata tree of the heavenly planets to be planted in the new city, and he also sent a parliamentary house, Sudharma. The specific quality of this assembly house was that anyone participating in a meeting within it would overcome the influence of invalidity due to old age. The demigod Varuna presented a horse which was all white except for black ears and which could run at the speed of the mind. Kuvera, the treasurer of the demigods, presented the art of attaining the 8 perfectional stages of material opulence. In this way, all the demigods began to present their respective gifts according to their different capacities. There are 360 million, or 33 crore, demigods, each entrusted with a particular department of universal management. All the demigods took the opportunity of the Supreme Personality of Godhead's constructing a city of his own choice to present their respective gifts, making the city of Dwarka unique within the universe. This proves that while there are undoubtedly innumerable demigods, none of them is independent of Krishna. As stated in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, Krishna is the Supreme Master and all others are his servants. So all the demigods took the opportunity to render service to Krishna when he was personally present within this universe. This example should be followed by all, especially those who are Krishna conscious, for they should serve Krishna by their respective abilities.
When the new city was fully constructed according to plan, Krishna transferred all the inhabitants of Mathura and installed Sri Balaram as the city father. After this, he consulted with Balaram, and being garlanded with lotus flowers but carrying no weapons, he came out of the city to meet Kalyavana, who had already surrounded Mathura. Thus ends the Bhakti-Vedanta purport of the 50th chapter of Krishna. Krishna erects the Dwarka fort.
So that concludes our hour of reading to you, Srila Prabhupada. We're so grateful that you allow us to come here in your sacred room in Vrindavan and read Krishna book to you. And as we always do, let us offer our respectful obeisances to you and to each other. Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti-Vedanta Swaminiti Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pacharane Nirvisesha Sunyavadi Paskachari Chatarane. And to each other, Vanchakalpatrubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Bhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Krishna Bhakti. Jai Srila Prabhupada, Shri Gauda Bhakta Vrinda.